So the discussion regarding the legality of abortion is nested inside a larger discussion about the morality of abortion, and that's nested inside a larger discussion about the proper place of sexuality in human behavior. And to me, that's the level at which the problem needs to be addressed. Now, I don't have the answer to that, you know, because the old answer was get married. That's a good answer, and it's an answer that people should still listen to. But we'll put that aside momentarily. I had a client at one point who was, I don't know, she was probably, I'm going to disguise her in a variety of different ways. She was 27, 20, thereabouts, had come from a relatively conservative background, quite a timid, fearful person, and also not very well, not sophisticated in relationship to relationships. And she'd never had sex. Well, there's a bunch of things she'd never done. Well, the answer from me to her wasn't continue to be timid about everything, because that wasn't working out for her. She needed to go have some adventures. Now, sexual adventures, like other adventures, are dangerous. And so you have to be very careful when you encourage people to go out and have adventures. But too much timidity and caution also constitutes a pathway to perdition, let's say. You can't just say to people in the modern world, well, no sex till you're married, unless you're going to get married when you're very young, and perhaps you should. I don't know about that. But I don't think that we're mature enough as a culture to have a serious discussion about sexual propriety, especially in the aftermath of the birth control pill. And we seriously need to do that, and we haven't. And so I think the eternal debate about abortion, horrible as it is it's the surface manifestation of a much deeper problem. Now, I talked a little bit today about the utility of marriage, like the spiritual utility of marriage. And that's something that I think we're so immaturely cynical as a culture. Like we're not wise enough to look at an institution like marriage and to really think about what it means and what it signifies. It signifies a place that people can tie the ropes of their lives together so that they're stronger. It signifies a place where people can tell the truth to one another. It signifies a place where sexuality can properly be integrated into life. That's no easy task. It's a place where children, at least in principle, can be put first and foremost, as they should be once they exist. And so there's a much broader discussion that has to happen, I think, before any concentration on the legality of abortion is liable to get anywhere at all. That's what it looks like to me. So that's the best I can do with that question.
Hi, Dr. Peterson. Earlier you showed a picture of Fuxi and Nua.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and Osiris. And in your Maps of Meaning lectures, you also explained that cultures around the world have these twin snakes that are
Yeah, they're everywhere, man.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that you believe this is a representation of DNA.
You would bring that up too. Jesus, what is it with you guys tonight? Yeah, well, yeah. No, I wouldn't say I believe that. I have my suspicions that that might be it. Yeah, because believe is too strong a word, but those representations are everywhere. And read this book. This is a good one. Oh man, now I have to remember the book. It's by an anthropologist who went down to the Amazon jungle and experimented intensively with ayahuasca. I think it's called The Cosmic Serpent. I think that's the name of the book. You could read that. There's another one called Breaking Open the Head, which is also pretty damn interesting. And there's something to those books. I mean, The Cosmic Serpent kind of goes off on a bit of a tangent, I would say, although Breaking Open the Head it's better. Better. It seems to stay more constrained and tight, but we don't know the limits of our perception, especially under certain conditions. And I think people have had intimations of DNA as the cosmic serpent forever. So, yeah. But that's way out on the frontiers of my knowledge, right? Like, I'm guessing in a dreamlike way when I'm making statements like that. So.
Because you did mention that you did believe it, and that there were sort of maybe some dreams and interpretations that might have emerged, but I don't see how we could have perceived DNA as it is.
Right. Well, yes, we didn't objectively, but I'm not so sure we didn't subjectively. But I mean, it's very strange that these double helixes exist in so many places, and that they're often utilized as healing symbols with the snake. So, anyways, like I said, that's, what do you call that? It's not hypothesizing, it's one thing worse than that. Speculating. Those are speculations. I'm operating at the edge of my understanding. But our perceptions are very mutable, and we can see things under some conditions that you wouldn't think that anybody could see. So, okay, yep.
So I was just starting to have a thought while you were talking about sort of getting to the end of the talk about the snake and the apple and so on. So what you're saying is the moment that Adam and Eve eat the apple, they become nervous or whatever. So that's awareness of their own vulnerability. So then, like you said, it's also awareness of their own capacity to do harm. So it's like when they are eating the apple, then that's them. Their immediate sort of nervous reaction is because they ate the apple and they kind of became evil in that moment or something like that. So,
well, they woke up, and because they woke up and realized how they could be hurt, how they could and would be hurt over the upcoming, over time. It's the same as the discovery of your own nakedness and the discovery of time are very, very similar phenomena.
right.
I mean,
that also means it's the discovery of your ability to do harm.
sure, as soon as you know how you can be hurt. Well, you know, if you have to just consult your evil fantasies, it's like, what'll really hurt him? Oh yeah, that would work. It's like, how do you know that? Well, you just think about it. What would happen if that happened to me? That would hurt. Oh yeah, that'll work. It'll hurt him or her. And you know, you probably think that way twice a week or maybe twice a day. Jesus, every time you have an argument with someone, all you have to do is look at the back of your mind a little bit. You don't want to, that's for sure. But if you do, you'll see these sorts of thought processes generating constantly. It's like, you know, in a back and forth discussion, particularly with people you love, it's like you're always looking for a place to put the knife in.
So then it seems really similar to me, or it seems like they're kind of discovering the kind of like Jungian shadow within themselves, so that is the moment where it got introduced into the human spirit.
Sure.
And one of the things about the shadow is that it's also, when you integrate that, that's what makes you a substantial person.
Right.
So it's like, it seems to me that on one hand, well, it seems like this tragedy that Satan, the most evil, the father of evil, whatever, has introduced into people, but it also seems like without that shadow that people are kind of insubstantial. So
Yeah, well, right. I mean, like I said that there's been a multitude of interpretations emerge as a consequence of that story. What was God up to? Was God in fact evil, the initial God? Like, why would he create a snake? Why would he put it in the garden? Why would there be these trees? What the hell is going on with the whole Satan thing? You know, it's very, very problematic. Well, we'll talk about it more. And this, again, is, let's call it speculation. Well, if you want to make something strong, you test it. And maybe if you want to make something ultimately strong, you test it ultimately. And I think that there's an aspect of being that has that element, is that human beings are tested ultimately. It's partly because we know good and evil now. And so that's the landscape in which we exist. So you could say the landscape is a cross. It's chaos and order, and it's good and evil. And we're stuck in the middle between those two things. It's a very common theme, by the way, in video games. Exactly that. Chaos, order, good, evil. It's the basic plot of endless video games. And that's perhaps because it's the basic plot. Well, those are the things we have to contend with. Well, I had a vision once. I shouldn't tell you this, but I will anyways. I had a vision once that I went to heaven, and I was put in a Roman amphitheater with Satan, just like Thor encountering the Hulk, right? That's coming up in that new Avengers movie. And so that was rather a shock, because I thought that was a hell of a thing to happen in heaven. And so I had this battle, and I won. And at the end, I came up to God and said, like, what's with the whole Roman amphitheater thing there? It seemed like a bit over the top to me. I said, why would you put me in a ring with something like that? And he said, because I knew you could win. And I don't know what to make of that. One thing I should make of it is I shouldn't tell you, but whatever. But there's something to that in my estimation. It's like, do you protect the people you love, or do you try to make them strong?
So you think it's not that we have like Satan to thank for making us substantial, it's that God gave us Satan in order to make us substantial.
Well, I'd hesitate to say that because it's so cut and dried. But I would say that that's a strong underlying theme in the biblical narrative. Yes. Now, it's certainly not the only theme. It's not the only interpretation by any stretch of the imagination. But there is something there. And there's something there, at the end, we didn't talk about this. God puts up this flaming sword and these cherubim to keep you away from the tree of life. It's like, it seemed, if paradise and immortality are the promised land, then what's with the whole flaming angel and sword thing? We could have just had the damn fruit 5,000 years ago and not bothered with the problem. Well, it seems to me that there's something like, I don't know what it is, consciousness through tragedy, clarity through suffering, maybe something like that. Or maybe the perfection that lurks as a potential in the future is something that has to be earned rather than given. Maybe it has no value without free choice. Maybe we have to distinguish between good and evil now that we have the capacity to actually apprehend them. Maybe that's what life is about. Maybe that's the separating of the wheat from the chaff. See, that's the idea in Revelation, right? Because when Christ comes back in the book of Revelation, he divides the damned from the saved. And the saved are the people who lived in Logos, roughly speaking, and the damned are those who don't. And so there's this idea that there's this dynamic that underlies experience that is in fact that sorting. Now, I don't know what to make of that at all, but that's the story. But what I can make of that is that I can't put a lever underneath the argument that I just made tonight about the relationship between the development of vision, the snake, the fruit, nakedness, time, the future, work, and most importantly, the emergence of evil. That seems to me to be, I cannot find a way to undermine that argument. It seems, I can't break it, and that's what I'm always looking for when I'm trying to formulate ideas. I'm trying to look for something that no matter how hard I try, I cannot break, and I can't break that set of ideas. Now, what the full implication is of that set of ideas, God only knows, right? But I could say also practically, one of the things that I've observed is that lies and deception destroy people's lives. And when they start telling the truth and acting it out, things get a lot better. Got to stop.